In an earlier Tales from the I.E., the career of Inland Empire musician John Jorgenson was featured. In September 2024, he reunited with his high school band, Rockin Pneumonia. Redlands raised John Jorgenson is the multi-talented instrumentalist whose music career began in the 1960s and continues to this day. He was born in Madison, Wisconsin in 1956, but moved with his family to the Inland Empire in 1957. John's earliest musical influences would come from his parents, James and Lorraine Jorgenson. The family moved to California when James was offered a position at the University of Redlands as assistant professor of music. Lorraine taught piano lessons at home. Both encouraged their 3 children to learn to play music. In Redlands, John Jorgenson attended elementary, junior, and senior high, then went on to graduate from the University of Redlands. John Jorgenson has been a member of many groups with repertoires that included classical, bluegrass, jazz, Broadway show tunes, new wave, rockabilly, country, and of course, classic rock radio hits. One of his earliest groups was Rockin Pneumonia, formed while he was a Redlands High School student. The name Rockin Pneumonia came from the 1957 single by Huey Piano Smith. However, it's likely that the name came to the attention of the band when Johnny Rivers covered the song in 1972. In a March 1973 Redlands Daily Facts article, a Rockin Pneumonia gig at the University of Redlands was reported. This photo appeared in a July Daily Facts newspaper prior to a Redlands Bowl appearance. The Redlands Bowl gig was part of the Lyceum Rock and Roll Youth Concert Series. They opened for Jim Turner from the touring cast of Jesus Christ Superstar and the Dwarf Band. These photos were taken at Rockin Pneumonia's performance at the Redlands Bowl. In a July 9th article, Daily Facts reviewer Tish Bailey wrote, "First on the bill was a local rock group, Rockin Pneumonia, who turned up the amps and really cut loose. They have talent, as evidenced from several fine solos, and suffer only for being too typical. They played the typical current rock hits in the typical way and danced and screamed in all the right places. In this competitive world, they will need to expand their act to make good." A Daily Facts report of a July 1973 University of Redlands Terrier Hall dance recycled an earlier photo shoot. The U of R Bulldog school newspaper and the Redlands Daily Facts both publicized a Rockin Pneumonia booking at a 1973 U of R homecoming dance at the Inland Center Mall in San Bernardino. The October 26, 1973 edition of the Redlands High School newspaper, the Hibachi, featured a John Jorgenson interview. It read, "Rockin Pneumonia," explained John Jorgenson, Redlands High School senior and lead guitar player, was thought up by the drummer, Scott Shepard. Steve Morgan, the bass player, and I just agreed on it. In a case like this, the most asked question is, how did you get started? As John describes it, 2.5 years ago, Steve and I were jamming around, trying out my new guitar. Scott came over with drums in his back seat, so we naturally started playing. When we heard the University of Redlands Music Clinic needed a group, we applied. Since then, Paul Meltzer, Redlands High School junior, has joined the group as piano and organ player. We got more jobs at University of Redlands fraternity parties and their student union, but we were all playing in different groups, so we hardly ever practiced. After each quit his band, however, we made Rockin Pneumonia a full-time thing. Practices now consume 15 to 25 hours a week of John's time, depending on upcoming engagements. One final mention of Rockin Pneumonia was made on January 1974 in the Redlands Daily Facts. It announced an appearance at a U of R basketball postgame dance at Terrier Hall. A half-century later, it was announced that the 4 members of Rockin Pneumonia would reunite to perform at the 50th anniversary reunion of the Redlands High School class of 1974. Prior to the gathering, bios of the 4 members circulated. They read, John Jorgenson graduated from Redlands High School in 1974 and the University of Redlands in 1978. After performing around Southern California for many years, John became internationally known as a co-founder of the Desert Rose Band, earning 3 Academy of Country Music Guitarist of the Year awards during the late 80s. The 90s saw the formation of award-winning guitar trio, the Helicasters, and recording and touring with Elton John. Since 2003, John has performed with the John Jorgenson Quintet, playing gypsy jazz world music, and since 2014 with his bluegrass group, J2B2, aka the John Jorgenson Bluegrass Group. Steve Morgan grew up in Chino and enrolled at the University of Redlands in 1969, where he performed on both trombone and bass. After graduating in 1973, he earned his master's and doctoral degrees in music education from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. This led to various teaching positions at secondary schools, community colleges, and the university system. Steve's favorite position was as director of bands at Madison's West High School, retiring in 2011. He remains very active as a professional musician, playing guitar, bass, or keyboard. Scott Shepard graduated as salutatorian from Rialto's Eisenhower High School in 1969 and was named Outstanding Senior Performer at the University of Redlands in 1973 and UCLA in 1978. 1979 found Scott playing again with John Jorgenson as part of the Aspen Music Festival's jazz band. From 1973 to 88, Scott recorded, toured, and performed as percussionist with the Los Angeles Philharmonic. In 1982 to 84, Scott also found time to join John Jorgenson in rockabilly band The Shakin' Snakes for many performances in the LA club scene. Paul Meltzer grew up in Redlands, graduating from Redlands High School in 1975 and continuing his education at the University of Redlands, where he earned both his BA and MA in composition. He has lived in Yosemite Valley, Boston, Santa Cruz, Chesapeake City, alternating with Redlands, where he now resides. Paul's prodigious talents on piano appeared quite early, but his career path is quite diverse, including textile conservation, antiquarian bookselling, raising horses, and running a nonprofit land conservancy. Following a single 2-hour rehearsal, they provided musical entertainment at the Redlands High School class of 1974 50th anniversary reunion on Saturday, September 21st at the Fox Events Center in Redlands. The next day, they moved across town to play for the public at the Escape Craft Brewery. Rockin Pneumonia's set list at the Escape Craft Brewery was made up of 1960s and early 70s songs. The fourth tune they played was Do It Again. In 1972, Do It Again was the first top 10 single for the U.S. rock group Steely Dan. Rockin Pneumonia's performance of Do It Again featured Paul Meltzer on keyboards, Steve Morgan on bass and vocals, Scott Shepard on drums and lead vocals, and John Jorgenson on lead guitar and vocals. While performing the song, Jorgenson used 2 of his vintage guitars, a Hofner and a Danelectro. So now here's a video of the reunited Rockin Pneumonia performing the Steely Dan song, Do It Again.
candle in your hand. Those black cards can bring you money, so you hide them when you're able. In the land of milk and honey, you must put them on the table. Now you go back, Jack, and do it again. We'll turn it around that time. Go back, Jack, I'll do it again. John Jorgenson.
As mentioned previously, the set list for Rockin Pneumonia at the Escape Craft Brewery was made up of 1960s and early 1970s songs. The 13th and final tune they played was We're an American Band. In 1973, We're an American Band was the first #1 single for U.S. rock group Grand Funk Railroad. It was pressed on gold-colored vinyl. Rockin Pneumonia's performance of We're an American Band again featured Paul Meltzer on keyboards, Steve Morgan on bass and vocals, Scott Shepard on drums and lead vocals, and John Jorgenson on lead guitar and vocals. While performing the song, Jorgenson played his vintage 1961 Gibson SG Les Paul guitar. He has owned this guitar since the early 1970s. The Gibson survived a 2010 Nashville, Tennessee flood that devastated the storage facilities where Jorgenson kept his guitar. Extensive repairs were required to make it playable again. So now here's a video of the reunited Rockin Pneumonia performing the Grand Funk Railroad song, We're an American Band.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh,